ride bikes and also find other women from their own community to ride with, including women who might ride in hijab or in abaya. One of the things that never gets old when you teach people to ride bikes is the sheer thrill they get when they realise they can do it.
The really special thing about teaching both the women in Fawkner and the women here is just the cultural barriers that they face every day, and coming from a place where they never thought they'd ever be able to ride a bike. A lot of them do reflect that it's been their lifelong dream to ride a bike, but they never thought they'd be able to do it. So it's just that extra level of being able to gift that to somebody.
I got really excited when I heard about this program. I'm almost 40 and I've never ridden a bike. I tried when I was little. Yeah, I still can't believe that I can ride, and yeah, it's been a dream and I'm so glad that it came true.
It was excellent, very special experience for me because it was my childhood wish to learn how to ride a bike.
Yeah, my experience was great because I've never ridden the bike before. So it was like truly empowering for me, and I thought I can't ever learn, but Kaz was really patient and encouraging.
At this age, it's a really courageous thing to learn new things, and any age, anyone can do it if they want it, and willingness is the most important things, and that's I prove myself.
I think it's good health-wise as well as environmentally. It gives me some physical activity to incorporate into my daily routine. I think it was great to find other people like me who have recently learned to ride, and you know, we are all well connected now.
Yeah, after so many years, I'm very grateful to have this opportunity and have Cass and Faith with us, and they've been amazing teachers. Everybody should give it a go and see for themselves how easy it is. Yeah, because I never thought I could, and I'm able to do it now.
The compost that we receive from Merri-bek Council that's made from the waste from our green bins, the food and organics waste, is a fantastic resource. A lot of carbon, a lot of organic matter that goes to building up the soil here, combined with the compost that we make ourselves. You know, a really brilliant resource for the garden, and it produces fantastic crops, as you can see behind me.
Well, obviously it's really important to compost food. If it's just going into the normal bin, then it's creating all these really bad greenhouse gases and contributing to climate change. But the benefit for community gardens is that we can't generate as much compost on our own, so we need the addition of council compost to help us grow vegetables and renew the soil so we get the best productivity from the garden.
Sometimes when we get the compost, there's contaminants in it, like plastics, biodegradable bags. Some of them are not quite suitable for the process that the compost goes through. We have to then sort through the compost and pull them out, otherwise they're going to contaminate all our vegetables and the earth that we're trying to re-nourish with the compost.
Messages go around on Facebook saying, hey, there's zucchini or cucumbers in the basket at Pentridge, and they're gone in, you know, half an hour later. So we just like to share it with the community because that's what it's about.
In Merri-bek, we now have a 4-bin waste service. All households need to separate mixed recycling, glass recycling, food and garden organics, and general rubbish. This will help reduce the amount of waste we send to landfill and improve the quality of recyclables in Victoria. Glass bottles and jars now go in your new glass recycling bin. Lids must be firmly attached. Loose lids go in your general rubbish bin. Steel tins, aluminium cans and foil, paper and cardboard, and plastic bottles and containers go in your mixed recycling bin. Food scraps and garden clippings go in your food and garden organics bin. You can use paper towels to wrap your food waste. Put your glass bottles and jars, food scraps and mixed recycling in the bin loose, not in bags. Plastic bags and other items that can't be reused or recycled go in your general rubbish bin. This includes kitty litter, animal droppings, old textiles and nappies. General rubbish should be bagged or wrapped. Update your recycling knowledge today. Learn what goes in each bin by visiting merri-bek.vic.gov.au/recycling-guide.
Why did we decide to go all electric? The primary motivation was obviously to reduce our carbon footprint as a family, especially with a young son, 8-year-old, who's attending primary school and learning all about climate change and how we can do our bit in reducing the impact. Since purchasing this house, we've installed solar panels, and we've also converted all our appliances cooktop into induction cooktop. Removing the gas cooktop, we've installed the split systems and also the hot water heat pump. At the moment, we export most of our electricity that we produce on a sunny day, which is not a bad thing because we do get paid for that exporting the electricity. What I would recommend others thinking of going on this journey of making their home all electric is to do it. But you can take it one step at a time, there's no rush, and there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of government rebates that you can access as well. There's Merri-bek City Council website, there's Renew, there's also My Efficient Electric Home Facebook page where you can consult and talk to people that are on this journey.
The compost that we receive from Merri-bek Council that's made from the waste from our green bins, the food and organics waste, is a fantastic resource. A lot of carbon, a lot of organic matter that goes to building up the soil here, combined with the compost that we make ourselves. You know, a really brilliant resource for the garden, and it produces fantastic crops, as you can see behind me.
Well, obviously it's really important to compost food. If it's just going into the normal bin, then it's creating all these really bad greenhouse gases and contributing to climate change. But the benefit for community gardens is that we can't generate as much compost on our own, so we need the addition of council compost to help us grow vegetables and renew the soil, so we get the best productivity from the garden.
Sometimes when we get the compost, there's contaminants in it, like plastics, biodegradable bags. Some of them are not quite suitable for the process that the compost goes through. We have to then sort through the compost and pull them out, otherwise they're going to contaminate all our vegetables and the earth that we're trying to re-nourish with the compost.
Messages go around on Facebook saying, hey, there's zucchini or cucumbers in the basket at Pentridge, and they're gone in, you know, half an hour later. So we just like to share it with the community because that's what it's about.
Well,
I'm Penny and I am very passionate about inclusion. I'm also a mum of 2 beautiful girls and my connection to disability is that I have retinitis pigmentosa, which is a vision impairment where I have about 7% central vision. So with my disability, because I have such a small amount of central vision, I'm actually not allowed to drive.
Good evening, councillors and members of the gallery, and to those viewing tonight's meeting online. My name is Councillor Helen Davidson. I'm the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council and as the chairperson for tonight's Planning and Related Matters meeting. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here this evening. We're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, and I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waterways, and I'd also like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as to all First Nations people who have significantly contributed to the life of this city. This council is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and Facebook. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Attendees are advised they will be recorded during this meeting. A reminder to all councillors that we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency this evening or a disruption, we may be required to undertake action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and councillors attending in person, please follow the directions issued by council staff and security officers. Now we'll move to councillors and officers in attendance. I would like to acknowledge we have Councillor Helen Politis, Deputy Mayor, here with us.
Good evening, everybody.
Councillor Natalie Abood.
Hello, everyone.
Councillor Sue Bolton.
Hi, everybody.
Councillor Liz Irvin.
Hi, everyone.
Councillor Chris Miles.
Hello.
Councillor Adam Fulford.
Hi, everyone.
Councillor Alice Benson.
Hey, everyone.
Councillor Kat Theodosis.
Hello.
And Councillor Oscar Yildiz. And we have Councillor Jay Iwasaki, who has been approved to attend tonight's meeting online. Is Councillor Iwasaki online?
I think he's trying.
Okay. I'm sure he will join us shortly. I'd also like to introduce Phil Priest, Group Manager of City Development, and members of the Urban Planning team. And there are no apologies from councillors tonight. Now, councillors, are there any disclosures of conflicts of interest to declare? There are none. And we'll move to confirmation of the minutes from previous meetings. Do we have a motion for the meeting on the 18th of December? Councillor Natalie Abood to move. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Liz Irvin to second. All those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. Before we move on to the reports for consideration this evening, I'll outline how this council meeting for planning and related matters will run. For the item in relation to a planning permit application, the relevant planner will introduce the report and the officer's recommendations. I will then give objectors and supporters the opportunity to make their submission. After this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you are making a submission, please state your name for the record. You're requested to present your viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you oppose or support the planning application. And this is quite important. Please don't repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues and points that have not been previously raised. If you're opposed to the planning application, please inform the meeting of why you're opposed and suggest an alternative approach which would satisfy your concerns. Please use this opportunity to focus on your concerns rather than matters of detail in the officer's report. There is a time limit of 3 minutes for each speaker and the permit applicant, but as chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or reduce that time to any speaker. Now, councillors, I know there are quite a few members in the gallery this evening for 5.2, the Shepherd Street application. Is there a councillor who wishes to move a motion to bring that forward? Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Svensson. I'll put that to the vote. All those in the favour to move that motion forward, report forward, I declare that carried unanimously. So we will now move on to 5.2, 16 to 20 Shepherd Street, Coburg North, Planet Permit Application, MPS 2024-531. And there are no conflicts of interest in relation to this application, so I'll ask Alec Osborne, Principal Urban Planner, to present the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors and those in the gallery. This item is a planning application at 16 to 20 Shepherd Street, Coburg North, for the construction of 72 dwellings and a reduction in the car parking requirements. The application is at decision stage. The site is currently occupied by a large industrial building currently used as a foundry. The area has a fairly mixed character with residential, industry, open space and education uses all surrounding the site. The Upfield train line, Bakers Road and Sydney Road are all nearby. The site also has a direct interface with Hoskin Reserve to the west. In terms of planning controls, the site is within the mixed-use zone. The Development Contributions Plan Overlay, the Incorporated Plan Overlay Schedule 5, and the Environmental Audit Overlay. The Shepherds and Norris Street Incorporated Plan 2021 applies to the site. This is a planning scheme document that provides built form and layout guidance for how a site is to be developed. The incorporated plan allows for developments of up to 5 stories at this specific location. The incorporated plan for the site was implemented through a previous planning scheme amendment. The planning controls within this document are tailored for this specific site and a few neighbouring sites. If a proposed development is generally in accordance with an incorporated plan, then the application would be exempt from public notice. The proposal is for 72 townhouses ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms. It would be a maximum of 2 stories. 8 car parking spaces are provided on site. These are comprised of 5 car share, 2 visitor, 1 accessible DDA space, as well as 2 loading zone spaces and 217 bike parking spaces, which are split between resident and visitor. The key considerations for this proposal are the affordable housing offering, the public works surrounding the site, the environmentally sustainable development initiatives, the accessibility and the car parking. At the request of the applicant, some conditions have been amended and officers see merit in the proposed changes. An amended officer recommendation is therefore put forward, which would include an amended condition 15, which is for the green travel plan, and this would increase the car ownership levy to $1,000 from the second year of residency onwards, and to clarify some exemption categories as well. And an amended condition 30, which is the car parking survey and sustainable transport payment to council, and that would require payment for the purposes of implementing sustainable transport initiatives within the general area. It is recommended that a planning permit be issued subject to key conditions requiring public works around the site, access ramps to individual dwellings, to lock in the affordable housing offer, the amended green travel plan condition and the amended car parking survey and sustainable transport condition as just outlined.
Thanks very much, Alex. Now I understand there is one objector who wishes to speak. Emma, if you'd like to please come forward to the lectern. And I'd also like to acknowledge that Councillor Iwasaki is with us online. Hi, Emma.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Emma Mountjoy and I live in Coburg North, just around the corner from this development, so around 100 metres of the proposed Nightingale development on Shepherd Street. I also work in the environment sector. I have for more than 15 years now. I'm really actually passionate about sustainability and climate action, and I'm actually very aligned with and appreciate many of the values that Nightingale promotes. Community-focused, well-designed urban developments, sustainable transport, this stuff is my jam. And they're things that I feel really strongly about, but I have serious concerns about the planned parking provisions for this development. The Nightingale car-free model, it's great in theory, I am all for it. I'm really on board with what they're trying to do, but I just don't believe it's one that works in Coburg North. Believe me, I love cycling, I cycled here. I used to love embracing that lifestyle when I lived in Brunswick, and then again when I lived in North Melbourne. I wish Coburg North had that kind of infrastructure, but Coburg North is not Brunswick. People in my community are far more likely to feel the need for a car. Don't get me wrong, I still love cycling when I can, but the reality for me and other young families in my area, and indeed most of my community, is that we do still need to own a car. There's limited reliable public transport options. I'm not going to bang on about the Upfield line. And there's also very few shops within easy walking or cycling distance. We've got Aldi around the corner, but everyone knows you can't get everything from Aldi. I also know from experience that childcare centres are actually quite a distance from our area. The closest one, which I went to, was more than 20-minute walk away. So for the Nightingale proposal on Shepherd Street, it's simply unrealistic to believe that only 8 car parks will be sufficient for 72 new households. Now, Council's own data shows that Nightingale's car-free model isn't working. I want to refer you to a report presented at the Council meeting on the 6th of December 2023, and I want to thank Marion Lee for pointing this out to me. When there was survey data presented to Council, taken at the Commons, which is, as we know, a Nightingale project, and 211 Sydney Road, which is another sustainable development in our area. And that data indicated that 38% of residents surveyed at the Commons are supposedly car-free development. 38% of them owned cars. And at 211 Sydney Road, it was even more. It was 62%. And that's in Brunswick, where public transport and local services are much more accessible. I also want to note that Council has not recently or adequately surveyed the parking availability in the area. If this development follows the pattern of previous Nightingale projects, we could see a significant overflow of cars looking for spaces on nearby streets. So without solid data, Council cannot rely on surrounding parking as a fallback. It's just too big a gamble. I also know that I'm from speaking with my neighbours, and I'm very well connected in my area, and I've also been monitoring the online discussions. There's significant concern in my area about the parking. I think there's support for the development, but there's concerns around the parking.
Emma, I'm just conscious of time.
Yep, sure, sorry. I just want to say the community deserves a development that truly fits the area. And I support many aspects of this project, but the parking and the traffic impacts need much closer scrutiny and stronger conditions to avoid long-term issues. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Emma. Thank you. Now we have 8 supporters who have indicated they wish to speak. The first person is Jonathan O'Brien.
Good evening, Council. So, over the past year, something really interesting has happened. The state of Victoria met its federal housing target. That is, we smashed every other state and built the actual real homes that actual real Victorians need. We approved a ton more homes also than every other state, including 11,000 more than New South Wales, where the housing crisis is, by many measures, even worse. We were able to reach these numbers because over the past year, the State Planning Minister was able to approve 15,000 more homes. Indeed, the reason Victoria is doing better on housing than every other state is because situations like tonight have been able to be avoided. The state has said, correctly, the following, that there are rules, and if a new housing project is compliant with those rules, then it should be built. The professional and talented officers over here have worked full-time to administer Merri-bek's planning scheme, and they have said that these homes should be built, and so they should be built. And yet here we are, having an argument again in council chambers, again. So let's lay this out. If council moves to reject this development, here is what will happen. 1, you will be known as yet another local council willing to arbitrarily override the professional work of your own employed officers in order to stop housing being built in this state. 2, you will spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of ratepayer dollars fighting pointless battles at VCAT. And 3, you will lose at VCAT, and this will happen because, as your officers have explained, the development is compliant with the planning scheme and ought to be approved. Now, rule of threes is a good rule, but in this case, the most important thing about these development is the fourth thing, that 72 families, 9 of whom who are on the social housing wait list, will no longer have clarity, certainty, or hope about their future homes, homes that they have locked in and are keen to move into. Councillors who have been here a long time know how this works. They know this process is a waste of everyone's time and money. They know that grandstanding for the sake of private car parking wins nothing for no one, and in the long run, it only makes housing more expensive for the people who want to live here. Indeed, even beyond the costs of delay, according to research commissioned by this very council, each car park costs between $50,000 and $100,000 to deliver. That's a huge number. It's a person's full year's income added onto the price of the project. These are the kinds of numbers that make housing unaffordable in Victoria. Folks, some people don't own cars. That's fine. People are, in fact, allowed to not own cars and should have the freedom to not pay for fuel, for parking, for insurance, for servicing, and so on. They should have the freedom to pick housing that reflects their chosen lifestyle. If it's a townhouse in North Coburg, so be it. Housing is a fundamental human need. Parking spaces are not. Councillors, I beg you, please don't mess this up. Thank you.
The next supporter is Jasper White.
Hello everyone. As the previous speaker alluded to, some people do not own cars. I am one of those people, and I believe that housing for people that are able to get around through means of active transport, whether it be walking to nearby public transport or riding their bikes, I think these people shouldn't, I've just pressed on that. I think these people shouldn't be burdened with the fact that they have to then pay, like he said, $50,000 to $100,000 for a car park. I think that's quite ridiculous in the case that that's not something I need, you know? And if people are looking for places that need car parks, we have abundance of such housing. So please, let's let this type of housing come through for a better city and better Merri-bek. Cheers.
Thank you. Next we have Ethan Gilbert. Oh, it's not here. Asanka Epa?
Hi all. I'd like to start off by noting that this development is indisputably high quality housing within walking distance of public transport and services. It would benefit 72 households that get to live here, and that includes social housing as well. So this has already been through a planning scheme amendment process, which doesn't mandate extra parking. As the officers note, VCAT has an established precedent of not granting additional parking near public transport, and council itself has a long history of granting parking variations, which officers recommend. Costs for a single parking space can run well into the tens of thousands of dollars, the burden of which will either fall upon new residents or stop new housing altogether. I hope that any potential imposition of extra parking would be due to inexperience among some councils, because the other explanation is the deliberate wasting of time and money to make provision of high quality and social housing in Merri-bek unviable. I've noticed over the past couple of years while attending these meetings that some councillors seek to accommodate any potential NIMBY objection while being completely indifferent to the benefits that the community would receive from new housing. would be terrible to kill off said housing because some insist on going against their own officer's recommendation and established precedent to force new residents to purchase an exceedingly expensive parking space whether they want one or not. As someone who actually lives nearby in Coburg North, who gets by fine on PT without owning a car, I ask you not to decide that you know better than future residents as to whether they need a car or not. They are perfectly capable of deciding whether or not they will need a car. What they don't need is councils either forcing them to pay for parking that they don't need or denying over 70 households the chance to live in Merri-bek altogether. This is an open shut decision. I ask councillors not to stand in the way of high quality and social housing. Thanks.
We have Lucy Sims from Women's Property Initiative in person with us as well.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and council officers. I'm representing Women's Property Initiatives tonight, and those of you who don't know us, we are a Victorian-based community housing provider who provides long-term affordable homes to vulnerable women and children who are at risk of homelessness. The key cohorts that we service are older women and women who have experienced family violence, predominantly those with children. Women are overrepresented in homelessness, and older women is the fastest growing cohort of homeless in the country at the moment. There are approximately 4,000 women in the priority category for housing in Victoria, leaving unsafe homes with children at the moment. WPI has a long-standing relationship with Nightingale, 7 or plus years. We have worked with them on several projects, including the Nightingale Village, and we are excited to be providing more affordable homes, long-term affordable homes in their project in Coburg, Sydney Road, Coburg. We work with Nightingale for several reasons, and many of those have already been mentioned tonight. That includes their quality delivery of housing, their sustainable housing that is really important to us because it also provides for affordable living as well as the provision of affordable housing, which is very important for the renters that live in these properties. They also are in fantastic locations with access to public transport with all the sites that we've worked with Nightingale, including this one. It's essential for our women to be comfortable in the housing that they live in and the communities that they live in. And I'm sure you're all aware Nightingale creates amazing communities for those residents of their buildings or their precincts, and this is going to be no different. As a community housing provider, the issue of affordability is very real for us, and I'm sure you're all aware of the constraints and the need for affordable housing in Victoria and metropolitan Melbourne at the moment, and in particular for women. We also know, as we've already heard from some of the representations tonight, that the additional parking will create additional costs with that housing. So for us, we need housing and we need it to be affordable, and we're very proud to work with Nightingale on their existing projects, and we certainly hope to be working with them on this project. We've had a fantastic partnership with them and with Merri-bek as well, and we are fully supportive of this development in the current plans that have been put forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Anne Coleman.
Hello, councillors. Thank you for your time. My name is Anne Coleman. I'm the Executive Director of an Australian not-for-profit based in Melbourne. However, tonight I'm here in my personal capacity as a potential future resident to support this project. I've followed Nightingale for a long time, more in a what a good idea way rather than with any particular intention. And it's been a constant reminder that we need to look at housing differently and commit to reducing our impact on the environment as well as the understanding that we need community in order to thrive. And that there are solutions, all of which Nightingale have demonstrated with previous projects. As I'm ageing and looking at the generations that follow, these issues are becoming more compelling. I know you are acutely aware of the housing crisis. I thought I'd be an empty nester by now, but I'm not, and I'm not sure when I'm likely to be. My choices have changed as a result. What I'm looking for now is a secure home that provides safety, community, and is affordable. And I would like the same options for others. But for me, the most exciting part about this is the trees. I need trees. And the opportunity to participate in the regeneration of the land and provide a small counter to the urban heat island is very exciting. I will be coming from a very inefficient house in the outer northeast that's in a leafy area, and I'll be saying goodbye to the ownership of a car, which at one time I would have thought of as unthinkable, but is completely doable for me. Mostly, I want any choices I make going forward as I age to reduce the burdens on myself and the community. I think this project could be very special, and I hope that you support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Elizabeth Bulling. Elizabeth? Yeah.
I'm Elizabeth Bulling. I wanted to give a bit of a personal perspective as well about why I think this should be supported. I'm a GP. I currently work part-time in Malvern and I live in South Yarra. I moved to from rural Victoria about 10 years ago for my daughter to go to school, separated from my partner and lost our house, and spent a very challenging time renting in Melbourne. Even though I'm working and earning, it's terrible. Tenants have no power. We've lived in houses that were falling down. We've had one place where they had a 2-year construction renovation project that we weren't told about before I signed the lease, and we had dust and workmen and no car space and no balcony, and it was just terrible. Anyway, I heard about Nightingale and I thought that that might be a way for my daughter to get into the sort of housing market. So we went along to the meeting, and we were both so impressed that I thought, oh, maybe we could both, you know, look at this project. And the things that really, really came to me were the affordability. Like, I've looked at a whole lot of different places to see what I could possibly buy, and it's just really terrible. And this is something which I think I could sort of do and be high quality, a nice place to live, and so on. My earning potential from now on is probably getting less. I'm 67, so I need to think about how much money I've got to live for the rest of my life. I want to minimise my contribution to climate change, so all the values that Nightingale sort of put forward I think are really important. And as far as a car goes, I drive to work at the moment from South Yarra to Malvern, but I basically catch public transport everywhere else. I ride my bike. I would buy an e-bike if I was moving into Shepherd, and I would expect to walk. And from a physical point of view and health point of view, walking daily for most of your stuff in the local area I think is really useful. And then finally, I guess, one of the big problems that we've found with renting is that you can't meet people. It's such a transient thing. You get kicked out of places. You never sort of meet the neighbourhood so much. And I think this is sort of the ethos that Nightingale is sort of going for, is that people are going to make it a home. They're going to come, they're going to stay, and they're going to want to build a supportive community, both the residents that are in the Nightingale development, but also the local community, local businesses, and the rest of it. And I'm hoping multi-generational, which is the ideal. So, sorry I was a bit upset when I first came out, but you've got the gist.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. Next we have Peter Greeno. Peter Greengo.
Hello.
Hi. Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Peter Greeno and I live in Brunswick. Readers on. I am an older woman, single, childless, and have a physical disability, arthritis. I have worked since I was 17 years old, and I was made involuntarily redundant in my late 50s from a job I had been in for 21 years. I survived on JobSeeker, which is a living hell, resulting in savings rapidly dwindling as the months stretched on. Then the pandemic hit and my rental property was sold and I was asked to leave after living there for 25 years. Rent that I could afford meant I lived in a mouldy, leaky, cold home with the gas oven as my heating. I was the quintessential statistic of an older woman heading down the path to homelessness. I became very stressed, depressed and hopeless. When desperately Googling housing for older women in Victoria, Nightingale appeared, an organisation with values aligning with mine, including people not profit and prioritising those most shut out of the housing market in this time of such crisis. They had a project soon to be balloted in Brunswick. It was close to public transport, safe, secure, a sense of community and sustainable. Extremely importantly, it would bring me long-term comfort and affordability as I aged. Giving up my car was a no-brainer for all the other pluses I would receive, and there is a car share in the basement of the building, so I'd have access to a car when I needed one. I couldn't believe my luck to have been balloted an apartment. My dear, lovely, light-filled, non-leaky, no mould, hydronically heated, little 32 square apartment with balcony that I love so much is so thoughtfully designed and perfect to age in, and I now call home. It's 5 months since moving in and life has greatly changed. My self-esteem is returning, stress has decreased, the joy of living has entered my life again. I am now 68, a pensioner, and I have a lovely home. I can't be kicked out ever for this last phase of my life, and that is a priceless security, which is the most precious gift I've ever been given. Bear with me. Nightingale made this possible, and I'm so very, very grateful. Thank you, Nightingale. And thank you, Council. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't realise my microphone was off. I'll now call upon the permit applicant or a representative of the permit applicant to make a submission. I note there are in total 4 representatives of the permit applicant. And I think we will call up Damien Isles to come in, up in person, and Brett Young, who will be online. If you could limit your speaking time to 2 minutes each, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. This is an important evening. It's tough to follow the people you've just heard from. I'm here as the Managing Director of Hanson Partnership. My name's Damien Isles. We are the planners and the applicant for this project. I've got 27 years experience in practice. I'm a resident of Brunswick over the last 14 years. I live in a project developed in partnership with the City of Moreland. I've worked with Nightingale Housing for the last 10 years and on the Shepherd Street Coburg site for the last 4. It's hard to ignore what you've heard from the beneficiaries of this project or the future community who will occupy this development. We know that parking is a significant concern, and we know that some of the councillors take issue with the approach that's been taken in this case. What I'd like to say to the council tonight is that we acknowledge the standard parking requirements across all Victorian planning schemes for an equivalent scale project. That would be 100 car parks. We also acknowledge that there are no bike parking requirements for residential projects below 4 storeys. We understand the apprehension that some councillors may have towards the parking aspect of this project. However, in support of our approach, we draw attention to a number of facts. We do provide parking on site. There are 5 car share spaces which provide the equivalent of 50 private vehicles to access the community who will benefit from this project. There's on-site visitor parking, disabled parking, loading facilities and drop-off areas. Over 217 bikes are provided when the planning scheme calls for none. Among those are cargo bikes, visitor parks, within mobility hubs and space within the dwellings. The site has an excellent walk score. It's convenient to Merliston Station, Sydney Road trams, and there's bus services within 190 metres.
Damien, I'm conscious of the time, if you could wind
the
up.
upfield bike path takes 2,500 bike riders a day, and that's very close by. But what we want to say is that in this case, in this project, in this application, we will accept a Section 173 agreement on title that will bond $55,000 to survey and provide any structural changes in the local streets. We will provide $45,000 as a non-refundable payment to support sustainable transport initiatives in the local area to be spent by council. And we will double the green travel plan requirements for residents with registered vehicles who seek to park on street.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you very much for your consideration and time this evening.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Brett Young, who is online. And I'll remind Brett that there are 2 minutes allocated for each speaker. I've reduced it because there's so many. Hi, Brett. Can you hear us?
I can. Good evening. Hello.
Yes. Hi. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, and good evening, councillors. Thank you for having me to speak here tonight. My name is Brett Young, and I extend my thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am a director and the head of transport engineering at Ratio Consultants, and I prepared the transport impact assessment that accompanied the application. One of the most challenging and, to me, most fascinating and important aspects of transport engineering today is shifting travel behaviour away from private vehicles. This shift isn't just a desirable vision, it's an essential one. Council and state planning policies seek to make it clear that continuing our reliance on private cars is unsustainable. To drive this change, we need better transport infrastructure, more walkable, cyclable neighbourhoods, and at the development level, and relevant to tonight's considerations, projects that actively reduce or eliminate dependence on private vehicles. This is no small task, but I've been working alongside Nightingale Housing to tackle this challenge for the past 10 years. For a car-free or significantly car-less development to succeed, access to alternative transport options and amenities is critical. At Shepherd Street, North Coburg, we have exactly that. The site is well connected with Merliston Station, the number 19 tram, and bus routes 534 and 530 nearby. The site's within walking and cycling distance of an Aldi supermarket across the road, Coburg Major Activity Centre, schools, shops, and essential services. To further support this modal shift, the development provides 5 on-site car share spaces. Now, this provision number was informed by extensive GoGet data and evidence that I collected with GoGet over the past 20 years of their operation. And that evidence supports 1 car share space as being able to support 19 car share members.
Brett, if you could wind up, please.
Okay. Look, as a traffic engineer with extensive experience across many developments, I can confidently say to you tonight that this project is a best-in-class example of one that will achieve a real transport mode shift, and I hope it receives your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Toby Dean and Jeremy McLeod, please both come forward and we'll have 2 minutes each at the lectern as you're both here in person.
No. Good evening, councillors, mayor and council officers. Thank you for having us and listening to us all. My name's Toby Dean and I'm Executive Director of Head of Community at Nightingale Housing. And I'm sure all of you regularly hear from people searching for safe and secure housing. Luckily, working at Nightingale, I hear stories like this all the time, people who have found that within our communities. You can see that these people are here tonight because they want people to have that opportunity as well. The opportunity to live in a supported and well-connected community without cars. For those that do not know, and there may be some out there, Nightingale is a not-for-profit housing organisation and recently registered as a charity with the ACNC. We've delivered over 600 homes, including 137 homes rented as affordable housing, including 376 homes within Merri-bek. We love it here. Shepherd Street will see another 72 homes, including affordable housing. We know our residents, and tonight I feel like you've got to meet a few of them as well. They're all aware and confirmed that there's no provision for private car parking on site, that they are not eligible for on-street permit parking, and there will be a green travel plan in place. Please listen to them and respect their lifestyle choices. There are plenty of homes that have car parking, maybe even a double garage. These homes are for people who choose to live a car-free life within a sustainable community. So many people want to live this way. Merri-bek Council and the council officers are committed to increasing the amount of affordable housing in the municipality. We want to help you deliver this. We have people from all around Australia and the world ask if we can bring Nightingale to their area. Everyone always asks us, how do you do it? And we'd love to say it's with the full support of Merri-bek Council. We urge you to listen to all the heartfelt stories and the data and all our residents here tonight. I thank them all for coming and I thank you all for giving up tonight. Councillors, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Toby.
Mayor
Go ahead,
Davidson,
Jeremy.
councillors, officers, residents of Nightingale, thank you for coming. Nightingale Housing believes that homes should be built for people, not profit. We build apartments that are socially, financially and environmentally sustainable. At least we used to build apartments. And we need your help. 15 years ago, it was in this chamber that we first spoke about our first project. That project went on to win the National Award for Housing and the National Award for Sustainability. In 2015, our second project won the National Award for Housing and the National Award for Sustainability. In 2018, Nightingale Village won the National Award for Housing and the National Award for Sustainability. That's 3 projects in the city of Merri-bek in 10 years that have all won the National Award for Housing and the National Award for Sustainability. But it's been tough. It's been really tough. The cost of construction, our development managers tell us, is up 42% since 2019. The cost of capital and interest is up. The cost of land is up. Shepherd Street cost us $13 million. That was $1,200 a square metre. If we'd bought it in Brunswick, because it was closer to other things, it would have cost us over $50 million at $4,200 a square metre, the same price that we paid for Nightingale Village. It's never been harder, and it's always been hard. In 2019, just before the pandemic, we started 9 new projects. We bought 9 new sites. In 2023, we bought none. The Nightingale Housing team has shrunk from 17 to 5. The co-founders, Tamara, Duncan and I, have all stepped back in on a volunteer basis since September because it's important, not because it's easy. So how do we survive? How can we continue to deliver on our mission? We move from a not-for-profit to a charity, as Tobe says, that will reduce our stamp duty, like we have at Shepherd Street. It reduces our land tax. We work with organisations like women's property initiatives, and we move to townhouses. And why? Because we can build townhouses for $3,000 a square metre, not $7,000 a square metre. We are here because we have to be. The future residents invested in this project themselves. They all put in $10,000 of their deposit to fund this project, reducing the cost of capital. And most importantly, we design a housing model that's based on rigorous efficiency, on rigorous reductionism, and on a sharing economy, on the things that people actually need, not what other people think they should have. We
Jeremy,
ask that
if
you
could
understand...
wind up, please.
Nearly finished, Councillor. Mayor, sorry. We're in a climate crisis. This project has 100% of homes that face north. It is 100% electric. It's powered by 100% renewables. Every home has solar. Every home has batteries. We've got a guarantee from Reposit that there'll be no electricity bills for 7 years. There's biodiversity everywhere. And we ask that you understand that we're in a housing crisis, not a car parking crisis, and that housing is a basic human right, while car parking is not. That we are doing everything we can to help, that we are required under the planning scheme to deliver 5% affordable housing, yet we're delivering 12.5%. We're delivering 9 homes, not 4 homes. And if we have to change the number of housing that we deliver, we have to reduce that number of housing, put in more car parking. The only thing that we can do is reduce the number of affordable housing.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'll turn to councillors if there are any questions for the applicants. Are there any questions? Councillor Abood.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm talking to Toby and Jeremy, or am I talking to... Yeah, I'm probably talking to everybody.
Yeah, please come forward, Jeremy and Toby.
And is this Damien? Is this guy's name Damien?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. I just wanted to ask some questions because it won't surprise you to know that we've been talking about this via emails all day. I'm interested to know whether it's viable for you to be asked to build a 20-car car park in the vicinity, or would that mean that you couldn't complete the project, is my first question.
So what we do know about the construction of car parking is that we're seeing the construction of car parking costing $65,000 a car. So if we build a 20-car car park structure somewhere, multiply that by 65,000, what is that? Is that $1.3 million or is it 13 million? I don't know what that is.
I think just yes or no is okay.
No. Well, we can do it, just no one will be able to afford to live there.
Thank you.
Councillor Yildiz? Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Confused. Earlier you said 5 car share, which will create 50 car parks. Is that right? I'm a bit confused, Jeremy, with that one.
Yeah, so GoGet's data says that between 10 and 14 cars are taken off the road for every car share vehicle that we have.
Oh, okay.
We've got
Excuse me.
5 GoGet EVs going in there, which will provide the equivalent of 50 car parking spaces.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, mate.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Miles.
Just a quick question, you might be able to answer it, but how much will these townhouses cost? I know things might change, but how much do you think each of these, not including the affordable housing ones, just off the bat, those ones?
I'm just going to ask Steve Hooker, our development manager, to give me the numbers on that. Can I take that on notice, get Steve to come in and tell us? Yep.
Councillor Politis?
Maybe Councillor Miles, just for context, we've got 12.5% affordable housing going to WPI. We've modelled that in at a 25% reduction against market. So we've got 12.5% that we're reducing by 25%. The rest of the housing cross-subsidises that to some extent.
Sorry, I think we've got a response. Go ahead.
Yeah, just response on house pricing.
House pricing is based on cost inputs, so we've got a working pricing model at the moment that has been expressed to the cohort that's looking to buy in the project. We've got 2-bedroom, 2-storey housing that's going to be in the $700,000 to $800,000 range. We've got 3-bedroom homes that are around $1 million. There's provisions within the IPO that required us having a 4.5 metre wide footprint, as you might be familiar with. That's made the housing larger than we would actually want in this. So that housing is actually quite expensive. That's $1.3 million for a 3-bedroom plus study, 2-bathroom home. So it's a very, very large house. Ideally, we'd like to compress that down, but that's the most expensive housing that we have for a full family home in this project. The 1-bedroom homes are just under 600,000, yes.
You might know the answer to this, but how's that comparable to other houses in that pocket? Do you know?
I think comparable houses on the side streets range between $1.1 million and $1.2 million.
Do I understand that you're saying that 1-bedroom houses, 1-bedroom units in that area are around 600,000?
In that area?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was referring to the local housing. The 1-bedroom units are a 1-bedroom unit with private open space, so not a 1-bedroom apartment, a 1-bedroom unit with 25 square metres of private open space.
Okay, so that's 600,000. And what's a 2-bedroom unit priced at?
In the project?
Yeah, in the project.
Yeah, 2-bedroom townhouse with dual living areas is priced at 700 to 800,000. Yeah.
Right, okay. Do you have comparison data for that area? Because this is North Coburg. Okay. Can I ask another question about the amount of affordable housing that you are giving up? 12.5%, so that's 9 units. Is that 9? If my calculations correct?
That's 9, yes.
So they're overwhelmingly 1 and 2 bedroom. Any 3-bedroom in the mix?
The issue with, and Lucy's probably better equipped to talking to the affordable housing component. A lot of the community housing providers are really limited by how much they can have subsidised for their housing. So there's realistically a cap. Even with subsidies and even with discounts, there's a cap as to what they can afford. That cap, Lucy, tends to be about $600,000, $650,000 that a community housing provider can actually afford. So as soon as we go to a larger home, it starts becoming unaffordable even for a community housing provider having discounts. So they prefer the smaller product that fits within that subsidisable range.
Okay, and can I just confirm most of that housing is for women escaping violence, fleeing violence, is that right? Or elderly women who are vulnerable?
There's 2 cohorts, councillor, older single women aged over 55, and then, younger women. But we're imagining that the smaller stock that we're selling would be for older single women.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if there's no further questions from councillors, is there a... Sorry?
Sorry. When you said the cost of the car park, how did you come to those figures? Did you put it out for tender or did you sort of guesstimate?
No, that's just based on what it cost us to build car parking in Nightingale Village.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll move to councillors. Is there a motion that...
That's why I stood up, because I thought that's what you were going to, and I do believe I did stand up first.
You have been standing up first, that's correct. I think Councillor Chris Miles did ask a question, at which time everyone should have been seated, but go ahead, Councillor Abood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to put the amended officer recommendation. Obviously, if I have a seconder, I can speak to it.
And Councillor Irvin to second. Councillor Abood.
I think what I might do is I might wait and close the debate, because I imagine there'll be quite a bit to speak to.
Is there a speaker who wishes to... perhaps... Yeah. Councillor Irvin, do you wish to speak?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, parking, it's always a, really controversial topic, but I think it's really worth remembering and realising that there are over 8,000 households currently in Merri-bek as of the last census that don't have a car. So I think looking at 72 households is a drop in the ocean compared to the number of households that currently exist without a car. And, you know, these are people that live in housing that ultimately has been designed to have a car. You know, these are households that are paying additional costs in terms of the space. They might have an empty garage or an empty spot in a basement car park. They're also paying for the cost in terms of how our streets have been laid out to accommodate whatever housing they're in. And really, I think we need to look at these households as what they give back to the community as well. You know, these are people getting around by walking, cycling, public transport, who aren't creating congestion, who aren't creating additional emissions. I think that the option to live car-free, it does save people a lot of money. I really appreciated Lucy's point about affordable living as well as affordable housing. You know, I myself don't have a car, and it's really the reason I think that I can afford to live in Brunswick, because it does save so much in terms of time and cost. And, you know, it's an interesting time for planning in Victoria. You know, the state government is in the process of updating its car parking and bicycle parking requirements. So by the time that reform is actually delivered, this sort of conversation will almost be obsolete, because they will remove car parking minimums and those requirements in the planning scheme. And I think we need to perhaps be thinking kind of as if we're 6 months or a year in the future, and look at the other provision that has been created for sustainable transport at this site. And it might not be perfect right now, but I also think that things are only going to improve. It's hopefully what we all around the table here aim to achieve, is improve our community, deliver better public transport, better and safer walking and cycling, and to also create mixed-use development, you know, not this one, but nearby, that improves the amenity of the site too. So I certainly think when we're looking at decisions like this, we need to be thinking of what sort of community we want to be creating, and not just, you know, be happy with the status quo of car-dependent sort of development that we see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin. Councillor Bolton, I saw your hand.
Firstly, I think we should recognise that the local community was never notified about this project, because unfortunately the council stripped away a long time ago through its development overlay the right for people to be notified and object. And I don't want to speak against the project, but I think it needs to be amended to make it suitable for the local area. I think there are many aspects of the project that are really good, and I don't want to see this project fall over, because the incorporated planning overlay allows for much worse developments, like 5-storey right beside the park. But I think there are amendments that need to be made, so I would have preferred to have tested support for an alternative sort of compromise. I see it as a compromise before putting the officer recommendation. Firstly, I think affordable housing, it's rubbish if there's a time limit to it. It needs to be in perpetuity, not just for 25 years. That's one of my amendments.
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Bolton. Is this a foreshadowed motion?
Oh, sorry, yes. Oh, sorry, yes, it is a foreshadowed motion. And so, but I would like to flag some of the issues that I wanted to raise as part of this, for people to think about it. And, you know, I actually would encourage councillors to hear all of the motions being put forward by all of the councillors before we actually vote on them, so that we can all hear each other's arguments. Public housing, in my book, is the only genuinely affordable solution, and we've just heard that social housing or community housing providers don't provide 3-bedroom housing. So all those families who are evicted from public housing in a city because of state government plans are not able to use these sorts of developments. We heard from someone who's sort of not a full objector, but has concerns about the project, although supports many aspects of the project earlier. And I think you do have to listen to the real life experiences of people in particular areas. And I think Coburg North is not Brunswick. Yes, it does have public transport. I've been stranded many times because I thought the bus ran a bit later than 8:30 coming from Coburg to Glenroy on a number of occasions. It's not, obviously, if you can't have a car, you obviously do adjust your life, but it does mean there's some things you cannot do. I've lived without a car for many years. I've got one at the moment. But so I'm proposing that there be no reduction in apartments and townhouses, but there be an off-site car park provided by the developer with a Section 173 agreement. And this could be amended at a later date if it was demonstrated that it is not needed or it needs to be reduced. But, I think one of the problems with
Councillor Boldham, I'm conscious of the time.
With using parking restrictions is you don't actually reduce overall car use, you just shift it to another area. I'm interested in reducing car use overall by building better public transport and other infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there a speaker in favour? Councillor J, Iwasaki.
Thank you. Sorry, please excuse any interruptions here. This matter is really important to me, so I'm taking time from seeing my family in Tokyo, Japan right now to cast my vote and speak about this. My name is Dr. Jay Iwasaki. I have a PhD in ecology, and I am an expert in sustainability. I believe that the facts strongly support that forcing parking to a proposal that is designed for residents who want a car-free lifestyle is a solution that nobody asked for a problem that does not exist. I want to remind everybody here that any additional car parks for this type of project directly contravenes the current sustainability goals established by previous councils in terms of CO2 emissions and sustainable transport. Frankly speaking, adding car parks to this style of development is a step back for sustainability in Merri-bek, both culturally and practically. I also don't support unnecessary steps that exacerbate the urban heat island effect, such as off-site parking, which is one of my core responsibilities. As has been said, in Merri-bek, nearly every house and development incorporates driving a car into their design or relies on street parking. There is no shortage of housing that revolves around accommodating a car. There is, however, a lack of human-oriented developments and a massive shortfall of housing overall with real suffering that we've heard today. What I'm hearing is that, as an analogy, someone's wanting to open a vegetarian restaurant and people on the council are determining that because you might get a customer who's not a vegetarian, we are mandating that you must have an expensive meat option on the menu because we want to make sure that you're healthy, and everyone will have to pay more for that. That's wrong. What also has been missing from this discussion is that projections indicate there will be 40,000 more residents in Merri-bek in the next 10 years. Promoting driving for a majority or even half of those 40,000 new residents will gridlock our streets. We are already in desperate need of housing, and here we have 72 potential houses for people who will commit to less traffic, lower local air pollution, and lower CO2 emissions for the whole of Merri-bek. This is especially important to me. I saw a video of a housing inspection in Merri-bek recently. There are over 20 people looking at a single rental property. When I was looking at apartments less than 2 years ago, it was very similar. We have not made much progress in providing for those who need it. While I acknowledge Councillor Bolton's real concerns and expertise, council officers have also deemed it to be a net community benefit, which is important to me. And that's better than its current state as a decrepit warehouse. And so I'm voting to stand in solidarity with everyone who is in urgent need of housing and the 20 people at that housing inspection who need a place to live.
Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki. As a point of clarification. Yep. Councillor Theodosis has a question in relation to a point of clarification.
Sorry, are we now going to be voting on, sorry everyone, this is
No, that's
one
okay.
of my
We're
first
voting
meetings.
on the officer report as moved by Councillor Abood.
Yep.
Should that fail, then Councillor Sue Bolton has a foreshadowed motion, which we would then bring to the council.
If I would like to raise an amendment for this, would I now do that now?
Yes, you can raise
Okay.
an amendment, and then
I
we
would
would
like
need a
to raise-
seconder and, see if it's agreed to by the mover and the seconder.
So, Mayor, just a process question, because I moved the amended condition for I moved the amended condition for 30 spots, and I would like the opportunity to speak to that.
Yep, so this would be a foreshadowed motion in the event that Councillor Abood's motion is lost.
Right.
So we have two foreshadowed motions potentially coming up.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So, can I
Well,
just
think
get
it's
clarity
substantially
on?
different to-
Can I get clarity on
Sorry,
Councillor?
Councillor Politis. I think we'll move to Councillor Theodosis and then we'll return to you, Councillor.
Of course.
Thank you. I would like to amend, to suggest an alternative motion that allocates 4 of the parking spaces to exclusive use of the social and affordable housing dwellings.
Yes, I'll check if that is agreeable to the mover, Councillor Abood.
Can I just clarify, are you suggesting instead of car share?
No, so it would be, I believe it was instead of the 2 visitor car spots and the 2 loading zones, it would now be 4 that would be allocated to social housing and affordable housing dwellings.
Yeah, I understand and I appreciate your effort, but it's not part of what I envisage for the amended officer recommendation, that amendment.
That's okay.
So that's not agreeable to the mover. So in that case, you have the option of finding a seconder and putting that to the council to vote on to incorporate into the substantive motion. Is there a seconder for Councillor Theodosis? Councillor Chris Miles? Councillor Miles, do you wish to speak?
I'll just be quick. I think that when we look at these houses, especially as we heard earlier about women escaping domestic violence, a lot of them are coming from a situation where they have to move things and have to start their new life, and they can't sort of set themselves up without a car. So I think having this as an opportunity for people who are escaping domestic violence to be able to park their car and have their car on a spot while they set up their new life is a small gesture to help them get back on their feet and to help support. They might have young children, they need to get to doctor's appointments, and they're in this position, they haven't planned to be in this position, they haven't said, oh, I'm going to go car free, they're suddenly in this position, this is where they need to be. So I think this is a small token thing that we could do to help people who are escaping domestic violence.
Can I speak on it?
Yes, you can speak on it, Councillor Theodosis.
Thank you. So my reasoning behind this amendment was that some of my concerns around the parking mean that cohorts of people may potentially be excluded from accessing social housing, which I just don't think is very reasonable. So some of those concerns might mean that, you know, working class women that might work night shifts and have to catch public transport, and catching public transport during the night might not necessarily be the safest option for them. I think, like Councillor Miles also raised, is, you know, women fleeing domestic violence, they may feel safer knowing that they can easily access a car. They have school drop-offs, you know, people who work in casualised workplaces who may need to travel at late notice, who, you know, don't work nearby or in a city or have accessible access to their work via transport. So yeah, that's why I thought maybe this would be a good solution.
Thank you, Councillor Theodosis. Councillor Abood is speaking against.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I appreciate the sentiment here, but I do want to mention with a bit of trepidation that I was in a super violent relationship for about 8 years in my 20s, and when I escaped, a car had nothing to do with it. I didn't have a car, I didn't need a car. What I needed was a community, And this is a community. The proposal is talking about a community. So I think that if I had had access to a share car, I might have been able to use the share car or even a van to get the things that I needed in the idea that, in the context of maybe what you're suggesting, Chris, of, needing a car to help move on and that sort of thing. But ultimately, the reason I was able to get away was because I had a community. And I think that especially older women, older single women in a community like this, a car is not necessarily the thing that's most important to them. And I think that leaving those extra spaces as car share just leaves a broader opportunity for the community building aspect and the opportunity to not own a car, which costs a lot of money, especially for somebody on a single income and everything else, but just have access to a car, which I think is covered in the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rood. Councillor Politis.
Mayor, I'm just seeking clarification on the process. So I put up the amended condition. Am I going to get an opportunity to speak to it?
Yes, so if you... Councillor Abood has moved the officer recommendation. Councillor Bolton has a foreshadowed motion. If you're saying you have a further foreshadowed motion, we can come to that in turn. So you may, after we vote, so...
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you may wish to speak now in favour or against Councillor Theodosis, but following whether or not this is incorporated into the substantive motion, there will be a vote. It's a bit complicated, but we'll move on.
Okay, thank you.
Now, are there any further speakers who wish to speak in relation to Councillor Theodosis's motion?
Yeah,
Councillor
for what it's worth, excuse me, I really appreciate all the comments being made and what Nightingale's trying to do. There's a massive shortage, and what you're doing is fantastic. My only dilemma with this right from the outset was the parking. That was my only issue. And I know it's tight.
Councillor Yildiz, so we're debating at the moment Councillor Theodosis's.
Well, her motion is about parking. So what I just want to make it clear from the outset is I'm not certainly voting against the proposal, but it's my issues with parking. So yeah, it's a balancing act, and I'm confident that this motion probably won't get up, your amendment. So we're probably going to go back to where we were originally anyway. But yeah, I just want to make that clear to the gallery anyway.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Yildiz. Are there any further speakers in relation to Councillor Theodosis's amendment? Councillor Irvin, yes.
Yes, I just wanted to, speak against this amendment. I think we've heard tonight from the providers, and they haven't raised any concerns about the car parking arrangements as they are in the current plans. And I think that it's really important for us to acknowledge their expertise and their needs. It's quite easy, to, put our own sort of vision and values and that sort of thing onto this situation. But ultimately, I certainly defer to the people who are, doing the hard work of finding housing for women in those situations. And the fact that they haven't raised concerns give me confidence that this is the right solution for them.
Thank you.
I actually would like to speak in support of Councillor Theodosis's motion, because I have worked with women fleeing violence for a period of over 12 years. And the one thing that they do seek is safety. And often many women actually sleep in their car. We know that that's a fact. And safety and security also depends on having somewhere safe to park their car. So from that perspective, I'm fully in support of what Councillor Theodosis is moving.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Councillor Bolton.
I sympathise with what Councillor Theodosis is putting forward, but I think given the limited number of parking spaces on the site, I think it's not practical because if you make the spaces exclusive to the social house, well, I don't know if it'll be actually social housing or affordable housing, but if you make them exclusive, then you sort of wipe some things out. For instance, with loading bays, and it's actually good that the developer is putting forward loading bays in this development, because you have to think about how people are going to move their furniture in and out. If you have a tradesperson to come and do maintenance on your unit, or if there's a home care provider or a home care worker or disability support worker who needs to visit, you know, and support someone in one of the units. So I think it's sort of too inflexible. I mean, maybe if there was more car parking on the site, maybe I might support it. But if it is as limited space, limited numbers, I think it creates other impracticalities.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Are there any further speakers to Councillor Theodosi's amendment? If there are no further speakers, I'll put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that lost. We'll now return to the substantive motion as put by Councillor Abood and return to that debate. Are there any speakers who have not spoken who wish to speak?
Yes, me, but I want to speak in support of the amended motion for 30 spots. Can I do that?
Well, that's your foreshadowed motion.
Yep.
So you can speak to Councillor Abood's motion and foreshadow your motion in the event that this is lost and the following motion from Councillor Bolton is lost. We will go to your foreshadowed motion.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Or she could put the amendment.
Or you could put...
No, it's substantially different.
It is substantially different, yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
Please go ahead, Councillor Politis.
Okay, thank you. So I've heard lots of heartfelt arguments today and arguments in support of this housing. I can't disagree. I don't disagree with any of it. I would like nothing more than to see more housing in the area. But I also have the experience of having lived in Brunswick, and I work and I play and I shop in Coburg. I use the sporting facilities in Coburg. So both Brunswick and Coburg are my facility, my area, my hood. And I want to speak to the evidence around the zero parking developments. Emma, I think it's Emma, kindly shared with us a report that was tabled which demonstrated the 49% of residents in these zero parking or low parking developments bring their cars with them. We live that reality every single day. I listen to the elderly and the vulnerable in the surrounding streets who talk to me about not being able to find a parking spot and the impact that that has on their lives. There's a reality around car ownership. And by the way, I didn't own a car for 12 years, but life changes, life stages catch up with you. I have elderly parents, I have young children, I have a whole range of needs which forced me onto car ownership. And so when we think about some of these people that move into these apartments, you would like them to age into these apartments, and aging into these apartments means giving them the flexibility and the choice, flexibility and choice to be able to own a car if they need to own a car. Now, 72 townhouses, that is a wonderful thing. The planning demands 100 spots because some of those apartments are 3-bedders. So 100 spots. What I'm saying is that we can reduce that in line with everything that I've heard tonight, in line with wanting to reduce car ownership. I'm cognizant of the fact that more people are going to come to the area. We don't want gridlock on our streets. But I'm also conscious at the same time of what the community in the area, what the neighbours have told me. Bill, who lives in number 2 Shepherd Street, who told me that the low development next door to him of 5 apartments, which allows 1 spot per apartment, has brought with it 2 cars per apartment, so 5 are parked in the actual development, the other 5 on the street, making life very, very difficult for him. Other neighbours told me the same thing. Salvatore, who lives on the corner, said to me, Helen, they can build 100 apartments if they want, just as long as there is sufficient parking, and he feels the impact of not having parking every single day, again, because of developments in the area. So the reality tells us something different. So what I'm arguing for is a case for a 70% reduction, 70% reduction, and that is contrary to what the community tells me, but that lines up with some of your arguments, because I hear you and I'm with you on that one, but I can't ignore the reality, and I can't ignore what the community and what vulnerable and what elderly people are telling me.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Pulford.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you to everybody who's turned out tonight to show interest in the decision that we're making. This proposal is for 72 dwellings up in Coburg North, and importantly, it's not for every single future dwelling that's going to be built in our municipality. I see this as an important offering in the housing mix. So many people, we've heard tonight from many different people who live many different lives and have many different responsibilities. Some require cars, some delight in being able to live a car-free life. This is 72 dwellings, so it's not every dwelling that's going to be built in the future. I think councillors should support this proposal because it is an important offering to our community, or to people who may move into our community, that could fit their lifestyles. We heard from people tonight who live in homes like this, or would love to live in homes like this. We particularly heard from older women who have found secure and stable housing and found the relief that provides through Nightingale's projects, and this is another Nightingale project. When I was listening to the speakers, I was tearing up a little bit because I could see my mum's story in some of your stories. My mum's passed now, but she separated from my dad, and there was a time when my sister and I thought we'd have to help provide housing for mum. When she was alive, she was lucky that she had a big family, one of 12, and was able to move into a granny flat in one of her brother's houses. But not everybody has 11 siblings who have property that they can move into. So I'm really pleased that this is before us. I'm really pleased that people can see a future in our community and a future in a life that they want to live in security. So I'll be supporting this motion put tonight. I can understand that there are local residents who are concerned about more cars being on their streets, and that's a fair concern. I think that by putting in some restrictions on those streets, the people moving into these new properties, they won't get access to parking permits, which means the people who are already there, who are already parking their cars on the streets, can get a permit, and those spots will be safe for them. People who have cars that move into this development will have to find other places to park them. The studies that were referenced earlier tonight show that over time, even if people move into a car-free development or zero car parking development, they adjust their lifestyle and sell their cars. And that, I feel like those studies were incorrectly referred to tonight. There were 2 studies done, one of an apartment that was much further in the process, and you'd seen a large reduction in the number of people that owned a car there. So, transitions take time. I think there's been some foreshadowed amendments here requiring, for example, lots of dwellings to not be built, for 30 more car parks to be built, or for the developer to find some land nearby to purchase, if it's up for sale, to then turn into car parks. All of this would either push up the cost of the apartments, which is putting it out of reach of the people who need homes and good quality homes, or it risks some of the good
Councillor Pulford, if you could wind up.
some good conditions that our officers have managed to negotiate, including good environmental standards, good accessibility, and the affordable housing offering. So I'm pleased to support this tonight, and I hope that Council does support this too.
Thank you, Councillor Pulford. Councillor Miles, from recollection, you spoke to Councillor Theodosis's motion, but you didn't speak to the substantive motion.
That's
Is that correct? Yes.
I just would
Please
like
go
a
ahead.
little bit of clarification from the officers, and then is that okay?
Yes.
So, something that Adam just brought up. So, as so much stuff's going on recently, so sorry, bear with me. But at the moment, these streets around this development don't have parking restrictions now that require people to have permits. Is that correct?
Yes. Alex, please come forward.
Thanks, Councillor. Our understanding is the immediate streets don't, but as part of the assessment, we didn't do a wider assessment of all the surrounding streets in Coburg North, for example. So I guess we need to know which streets you're referring to, but Shepherd and Norris, for example, no.
So there's no. So if we were then to say, is that okay?
Yes.
What are we, so is it if we say that they can't have permits, but they don't need permits at the moment, so that doesn't really count, unless I'm mistaken.
So
if at the moment there's no restrictions on that street and saying that they can't have permits, but there is no permits that they need, is that correct?
That's correct. So if parking permits were introduced to those streets, future residents of this development would not have access to those parking permits were they implemented.
So we could put restrictions on there aren't at the moment.
Is it okay? Because my concern is, like, I'll just speak to. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think this is a great. You know what we've heard today. I mean, there was a bit of soft soap there that sort of I was a bit anyway. My concerns are that yes, people move into these places with the best intentions, but then something comes up and their lives change, as Councillor Politis had mentioned. I don't want to lose these developments for people to have the opportunity to live in them by forcing the builders, the developers, to build extra stuff that they clearly can't afford. And we've seen, you know, on the public record, you know, that things aren't going that well. So I don't want to put this risk, these developments, these houses for people to live in. My concern is that at the moment, someone could move in, say, yep, I'm going to be car 3, 6 months later, they've got a car, and we've got half the block of units have got cars now. I think, I don't know, tell me, I'm very new to this. Is it possible to have an amendment that we have a radius of 300 metres, that we look at incorporating parking restrictions, and Nightingale residents for the life of that building will not be able to get any of those permits? Is that something that we could add in? Because I think this is great that we have these properties, but you can't, So I'll foreshadow that.
Sorry, you're wanting to incorporate and...
It's in...
No, it's a separate part of council. One of the directors probably should
Yeah.
do it.
Thank you.
Can't put planning parking restrictions
So-
onto it.
Yeah, through Phil.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. So in the recommendation before council tonight, there is a requirement, and I'm just trying to find the permit condition, that requires or commits to a bond being provided so that a study can be undertaken by council within 12 months of the development being completed, which would provide for an assessment of the demand for that for demand of on-street car parking. And if that demonstrates that there is a greater use of on-street car parking, and subject to support of that surrounding community, that council would then use the money from that bond to introduce the on-street car parking, which I think will address the issue that you were raising, councillor.
Those permits cost money, is that correct?
$48
is it
for the first permit.
Is it possible, I'm sorry, to to exclude residents from having to pay that who already live in that street, because they didn't ask for this and it's being put onto them, this extra, if this was to happen, can we exclude a certain radius from grandfathered in while they own the property, they're excluded from having to pay for those permits?
Not as part of this planning decision.
No.
Because that's a separate decision under Local Government Act of council charging fees for on-street car parking permits, etc.
But we could do that.
That wouldn't rule out the opportunity for council to explore that as a separate resolution at a separate time.
Okay.
But not as part of this planning decision before.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any further speakers?
Did you speak to it? Okay, go for it.
And Jay, I can see you as well. Councillor Svensson, please go ahead. Yeah.
I want to start by saying a very big thank you to everybody who came and shared their really heartfelt stories tonight. Everybody here knows that we're in a housing crisis and the business as usual housing model isn't working. More people are at risk of homelessness in Victoria than any other state or territory. And we know that the housing crisis won't be solved by just building more houses that average people can't afford. That's why we need to support developments that are doing things differently. This development proposes 9 social homes for at-risk residents and another 63 sold at cost. That's pretty damn different to the average developer, and that's why we should be supporting it. By requiring private parking, we not only push up the cost of these homes, making them less affordable, but we also run the risk of making the project itself unviable. If we pass unviable amendments, that means either, best case scenario, that Nightingale will go to VCAT or the Planning Minister to step aside and get around these amendments, which delays desperately needed housing. And then we're just adding extra time, coming back to what we could have already done right here, right now, today. Or worst case scenario, Nightingale has to abandon the project because it isn't financially viable. And then we end up with a different developer down the track who offers a far less affordable and far less environmentally and socially responsible proposal. I'm not going to pretend that this development is going to solve the housing crisis. But while we're waiting for the state and federal governments to do their fair share and build genuinely affordable public housing, we need to support the next best option. We're in a housing crisis, not a parking crisis. I urge all of the councillors to support this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Councillor Iwasaki, I did see your hand up before, but you spoke to the substantive.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't need to speak again. I thought I was speaking to the foreshadowed, but never mind. All good.
Thank you, Jay. Councillor Abood, who has reserved her right to speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for indulging me to get away with what I've got away with, which is putting this amended officer recommendation here. When this came to a briefing, this particular item, it didn't have to come to the briefing. It came to the briefing because these planners, who I trust, were being transparent. And councillors decided it should come to a public meeting. And the reason that it was called in was predominantly because of parking, car parking. Now, while we've been listening to and talking about this development, nobody at any stage has said it's got really bad ESD, it's got really bad cross-ventilation, it's got really bad deep planting, it's going to look ugly in my community and it's going to lower my property values, it doesn't suit what's in the neighbourhood, it ruins the heritage. You know, you might hear me say later on, the toilet is 1.2 metres from the dining table. None of that stuff has been said. We haven't talked about the fact that it's adaptable if you're on wheels or you have some kind of disability and you need the toilet and the kitchen and a space to sleep on the same floor. That hasn't been mentioned. The only thing that we've been talking about is parking. Now, the site of the development is 11 kilometres from the CBD, from the State Library, right? We are in a big international city here. If we don't start rethinking our car usage, and if we don't start thinking, I'd love to get rid of my car, but I can't, put it on car share. There's going to be 72 or 100 people right in your neighbourhood who will want to use your car if they can't park in your street. We're talking about a neighbourhood that is already jam-packed with cars. When there's a football game on, the streets are already choked with cars. The new car park that's just been refurbished next to the Islamic school is choked with cars. I heard this today. More cars mean more traffic. The traffic's already an issue. There's councillors talking about applying permit parking to this neighbourhood. The permit is $48. That's less than $1 a week for a permit, right? And it means you will secure your car space. You will, if you can't park in your driveway now, you will be able to park out the front of your house if parking restrictions come in and you have to buy a permit. And it also means you have an opportunity for up to the sum of, I think, $30,000 a year to rent your car space out to one of these people who want to park in your street. If all we're talking about with this development is parking, and this development is likely to see either be called in by the planning minister or go straight to VCAT and be approved because it has a lot of merit, I'm not going to be on the list of people who reject this application. I implore you all to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Now, I will put Councillor Abood's motion to the vote. All those in favour? Yes. All those against? And any abstentions? Okay. Yes. We'll call a division. So all those in favour were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Theodosis, Councillor Svensson, Councillor Pulford, Councillor Chris Miles, Councillor Irvin, Councillor Bolton and Councillor Abood. Against was myself, Councillor Davidson and Councillor Politis.
Sorry, you left me off, Helen, on the floor.
And Councillor J. Iwasaki, my apologies. Yes, Councillor Iwasaki was for. I declare that carried. All right, I'll give members of the gallery a chance to leave. All right, now we will move on to the next planning application because it is getting late in the evening. We have planning permit application MPS 2024-570, 246 to 256 Sydney Road, Brunswick, planning permit application, as I previously said. I will ask Rachel Clark, Principal Urban Planner, to present the report. Please come forward, Rachel. Oh, my apologies. Yes, Alex, please. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. The council has decided to issue a planning permit for the construction of 72 dwellings and a reduction to the car parking requirements at 16 to 20 Shepherd Street, Coburg North, subject to the conditions contained within the amended officer recommendation. Following the issue of the planning permit, the applicant will receive a copy of the decision.
I believe outside, they can't hear you outside.
Yeah.
Is it green? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. They might just be a bit loud.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Following the issue of the planning permit, the applicant will receive a copy of the decision. The applicant has 60 days from the date of issue of the planning permit to appeal any conditions on the permit.
Thank you very much, Alex. My apologies again. All right, we will now turn again to Rachel, Principal Urban Planner, to present the next report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors and the gallery. The application that we have. Sorry, I just need the presentation started back at the first part. Thank you. So the application we have in front of you today concerns the property at 246 to 254 and 256 Sydney Road in Brunswick. The planning application is for the demolition of the existing building and the construction of a 6-storey apartment building.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a bit hard to hear you outside. I think there might be some technical problems that they're trying to sort out.
Okay, try again.
Can you hear me fine?
Okay, yes. Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's no worries. So the site is located on the eastern side of Sydney Road, approximately 30 metres south of the intersection with Glen Lyon Road in Brunswick. To the north of the site is newly constructed Michelle Guillermo Park. To the east is the Christchurch Brunswick. The site also abuts a laneway which runs in a north-south direction from Merri Street. To the south you have a 3-storey mixed-use building, and to the west is Sydney Road. There are two images on the screen. The image on the left-hand side is a photograph taken of the site from Sydney Road. You can see the adjoining parkland under construction, and the image on the right-hand side is taken from the rear laneway. The site's located within a commercial 1 zone. However, there is a small portion of the site towards the rear that's located within the residential growth zone, and it's affected by a number of overlays. Most notably is Schedule 18 to the Design and Development Overlay, which sets out the relevant built form controls. The site is also affected by a heritage overlay, with the current building on site classified as contributory to the broader heritage precinct. The site is located within the Brunswick Activity Centre, which is an area identified for significant growth. The Design and Development Overlay, which applies to the site, includes a preferred maximum building height of 19 metres or 6 storeys. The proposal under this application is for the construction of a 6-storey building with a maximum height of 20.4 metres. The building would include a shop or food and drink premises at the ground floor, 23 dwellings, 5 of which are 1-bedroom, 16 2-bedroom and 2 3-bedroom. Of those 23 dwellings, 73% are accessible, 28 car parking spaces within a basement, 34 bicycle spaces, and a 68 square metre communal space provided at the rooftop level. Public notification was undertaken and 4 objections were received. The main issues that were raised in those objections related to facade detailing, communal open space, dwelling diversity, and the demolition of a wall and the impact on statues and other associated structures on the Christchurch site to the east. Targeted consultation was held with the objectors, including a meeting between council, the applicant, and the objector to the east of the Christchurch, Brunswick. 2 letters of support were also received. Key considerations for this application include the interface with the parkland, car parking and access, interface with residentially zoned land, internal amenity, and ESD initiatives. The recommendation put forward tonight is an alternate officer recommendation that includes ongoing discussions between the Christchurch Brunswick and the applicant. This would include updated condition wording relating to the east brick boundary wall and a detailed construction management plan protecting the statues and associated structures, water tank and garden. It is recommended that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for number MPS 2024/570 be issued, subject to key recommended permit conditions requiring the construction to be within title boundaries, use of hand tools to demolish the east brick boundary wall, and the provision of a detailed construction management plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Now we have one objector who's indicated they wish to speak. Robin White, please come forward. And thank you for your patience. The other application did go on for quite some time. Thank you for waiting.
Councillors, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I hope this is a much less complex matter than the previous one. I've taken the liberty of just providing some photographs, which I think will make my speech much shorter.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I do thank the planning officers for facilitating a meeting with us and the applicant. And I think we made quite good headway with that, with the council requiring the applicant to demolish the said walls that are on our boundary with hand tools. If you look at these photographs, you'll see that the red brick walls in that top middle photograph, these are the ones that we're talking about. They've been there for a very, very long time. And you can see that the walls themselves are only 4 metres away from a Victoria Heritage listed church. It's one of only a few buildings in Brunswick that are listed with Heritage Victoria. Now, we're not objecting to the development, but what we are objecting to is the fact that no consultation was made with us prior to us lodging the objection, which was very disappointing. We've been here for a very, very long time. The church is over 160 years old. And that little area there, a lot of people walk by every day, and you can see in the first picture on the top left, those steps coming down are from the new park, which council has spent a lot of money developing. It's a wonderful new development. Our church gardens are one of the few green spaces in Brunswick, and they've been open from 7 in the morning till 7 at night for a very, very long time. And people come in and sit and have their lunch in the gardens. And it's a public amenity that we're very pleased to provide. And you can see, hopefully, from the pictures that there's a pathway around the church that people use. A lot of people come in. So what we're asking for is for consideration by the developers to take care when those walls are being demolished. We accept that it's unrealistic for the walls to be retained. The developers say that that's far too expensive. We accept that. But what we don't accept is lack of care in the way that they've approached it. We've got aged vines growing up those walls, and with care, we can cut those back and retain them so that they'll grow again. So we're not asking for things to stop, but we are asking that the plans only be approved on the conditions, and I think the officers have incorporated all of our concerns. I have one more concern, and I'm treasurer of the parish. We're a parish where we're not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, and we use our very scarce resources to provide support to the community, free lunches every Thursday, etc., etc. And should that development not proceed and those walls have been demolished, we have no capacity to replace them. So what we're asking, and I don't know how common this is, I know in other areas there's escrow or bonds or whatever else that people can put money into in advance if there's some problem with a development proceeding and the wall's not being reinstated as part of the development. So I think that's the only other thing that I'm hoping that council can find a way of accommodating.
Thank you. If you've got questions,
I wanted to just ask a question about that to the officer, if possible. Or?
I think after we've gone through the objectors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have one supporter who has also they wish to speak. That's Jonathan O'Brien.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm not calling in, not today. Thank you all. I'll keep this brief because you know what I'm going to say. That this development on Sydney Road is great and that it should be built. That this building provides housing and retail in an activity centre, that it's 6 stories, mixed use, and near a train station. It's exactly what we've been advocating for the past 2 years for the area of Brunswick. There are various things I would change, of course, about the development, but there are various things that all of us would change about any development. And that's why seeking to regulate taste and aesthetics and all the subjectivity of things is generally a bad idea. Policy shines when we think about outcomes, first and foremost. Outcomes like ensuring that walls are taken care of. Outcomes like the need for more housing. Policy is best when we have a hierarchy of importance and we can trade that hierarchy off against each other. In the context of the ongoing housing crisis, this bill achieves a key policy goal of any good and effective government, building more homes where people want to live. I hope the council supports this development. Thank you very much.
Sorry. We'll now turn to... Yes, sorry, two seconds. We'll now turn to councillors to ask questions of the applicant. Is the applicant here in person? Yes, sorry. Please come forward. We'll hear from the applicant after the applicant speaks. Yeah.
Good evening, councillors and members of the community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight in relation to the application at Sydney Road on behalf of the project team. My name is Harvey. I am the applicant and urban planner assisting the owner of the land for the development. As the urban planning consultancy on this project, Urbis asserts that this proposal is highly consistent with the planning policy framework at both state and local levels, and is strongly aligned with the emerging character of the Sydney Road corridor. Subject site is a prime contender for infill development, given its proximity to high-frequency public transport, services, employment, and public open space. This development style is reflected in the emerging infill developments along Sydney Road, such as Terrace House and 211 to 213 Sydney Road. And the development will contribute much needed housing stock and diversity to Brunswick and the wider Merri-bek community, supporting housing affordability and choice. At a more policy-specific level, the proposal is highly compliant with the DDO 18 and includes street wall heights and up-level setbacks in accordance. There is a minor variation to the preferred building height, but this is marginal. Shadowing impacts are restrained to avoid unreasonable impacts or effects on the public realm or adjoining residential properties. And overlooking into adjoining properties is mitigated through appropriate screening and balcony placements away from sensitive areas. From an internal amenity perspective, the proposal delivers well-designed apartment layouts and high-quality communal facilities that fully comply with the standards and objectives of the Better Apartment Design Standards. Future occupants will benefit from generous private outdoor open spaces, including balconies overlooking the new park, enhancing both outlook and passive surveillance to improve and support community safety. The development is also underpinned by a strong commitment to environmental sustainability, incorporating a range of ESD initiatives to ensure long-term efficiency and resilience. As part of this application process and the public notice period, the neighbouring property to the east, the Christchurch of Brunswick, raised concerns regarding the future treatment of the boundary wall. In response, we met with the church representatives to discuss their preference for retaining the existing sawtooth wall. Following internal discussions and consultation with our structural engineering team, the feasibility of this request was assessed. The retention of this wall is not viable from an engineering and cost perspective. Due to the age of the structure, significant re-engineering would be required to support the loads of the new building. Additionally, given the extent of its basement, construction propping up the wall during the demolition and excavation would be both technically challenging and prohibitively expensive. Our engineering team also identified safety risks for construction staff if the wall to be retained. For these reasons, the request to retain the wall could not be accommodated. However, to mitigate impacts to the church, we have requested that Council include conditions on the permit requiring the careful removal of the boundary wall, using things such as hand tools to minimise disruptions to the church, as well as the reinstatement of the existing creeper following construction. To conclude, this proposal demonstrates high compliance with planning policy, is appropriate in terms of scale and urban context, and should be supported in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much.
Can we ask questions?
Thank you very much. Yes, we'll now turn to questions by councillors to the applicant. Councillor Politis.
Thank you. So you said the retention of the wall is prohibitively expensive. Are you able to share with us the cost of that? And also, there is a request to remedy damage to the garden statues and the water tank. Are you saying that you can do that?
So in relation to the cost of the retention of the wall, I don't have that figure on hand. That came about through discussions quite recently with the project engineer and the developer himself. So that cost is not available to me at this point, but I can obtain that from the owner and the engineer and provide that if necessary. In relation to the water tanks...
And just as an extension of that, does it just come down to the cost?
Well, that's one component, but the engineering associated with that cost, with that retention, as I said, because the way the basement is to the full extent of the property boundary, right. So having that wall retained during the construction and the demolition process is technically, engineeringly challenging, and then also quite expensive, given the cost of development at this point in time. It's an added cost which would then possibly make the development unfeasible financially.
Sure. Okay, but then there's the garden, the statues, and the water tank.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't imagine they'd be significant costs.
No, so as part of the officer's recommendation, there's a series of conditions to protect those. Our client and the developer, the owner, is more than happy to ensure the protection of those statues, the water tank, the landscaping, all of that during the demolition and construction.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Miles.
Is there one of the issues with the brick wall is if it was to remain, that you couldn't guarantee the structural standards of that brick wall after the amount of work that's done digging underneath to build the car park and all that other work? Because, you know, you can't just do all that work and then, you know, say it should be okay. Is that a concern that you have?
The concern is that given the age of the wall, from what I understand from the engineers, it would require a lot of re-engineering to ensure that it can take the loads which will sit above it, given it will be a load-bearing wall with a 5 to 6 story development on top of it. There's also the nature of that you're excavating a series of earth immediately adjoining the wall, and so you have to do a significant amount of re-engineering underneath it. It's just very expensive. Whereas if it was developed the new wall to new standards, using modern construction methods, it's far more cost-effective and stable from an engineering perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Pulford and then Councillor Bolton.
We just had a representative of the church ask about if a bond could be paid in case there is damage, that then there's a bit of security for them to be able to fix the wall. I guess my question is that possible for you? And the question to an officer would be, or is that better done through enforcement after the fact? Like, would that be acceptable to you?
Well, I can't speak as the applicant. I can't speak on behalf of the client, but I think there's a fail-safe in that term, or in that concept, which is a construction management plan, which sets out a series of requirements for the demolition and the protection of those adjoining assets. But ultimately, if there was something to occur on site which caused issues to the adjoining property, there would be enforcement, as you said, planning enforcement, which could be enforced upon the client and the owner and the developer to ensure that any costs would be carried by the owner if something were to happen. But I'm not sure of a planning mechanism to secure that.
The bond.
Yeah. It might sit.
Are we able to just double check that with the officer?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, the matters that we're discussing as part of the alternative recommendation and some of the recommendations that were in the original agenda are matters of construction management which aren't normally a planning consideration before council. They have been incorporated into this recommendation and into the alternative or updated recommendation by officers because of the agreement that's been reached between the applicant and the objector party. Had early agreements or an agreement already been reached and wording agreed to around a bond, that may have been able to be incorporated in the alternative recommendation tonight. What I would say to council is that the agreements that have been reached through the discussions have been great, and they can be enforced, those requirements, and they do provide a higher level of protection of the adjoining property through construction that you would normally see in a planning permit condition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolton.
I guess my understanding of the requests from the objector was that in the event that the development fell over and wasn't built, but the wall had already been demolished, that then some kind of wall be reinstated to provide protection. So I understand that is what they're requesting rather than just protection in general, that if I'm right. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's my question is, do you think that is something which the developer might be willing to consider? And secondly, a question for officers, can the objector have any input into the preparation of a construction management plan, such as to ask for such a wall to be, a protective mechanism of a wall to be reinstated or constructed if the development falls over and doesn't get built?
Councillors, normally the construction management, through the Mayor, the construction management process would be a process that involves submission of the plan to Council's amending and compliance unit and them considering considering that application. It doesn't provide for really a third-party process or involvement of objectors as part of that approval process under our local law. That doesn't mean, however, with the goodwill that's been built through the conversations that have happened so far, that there might still be the opportunity to continue those discussions and negotiations in terms of what that final plan comes forward. Our other alternative tonight would be to defer this item and allow for further negotiations between the parties. I am conscious, though, that there's been so much goodwill built up towards achieving a decision tonight between the applicant and the objectors.
Thank you, Phil. Are there any further questions for the applicant? If there are no further questions, councillors, could I please have a motion in relation to this application? Councillor Miles?
Happy to second.
And Councillor Gilders. Councillor Miles, do you wish to speak?
No, but I think
No. Likewise, can we put it to the vote, please?
We've got a procedural motion to put it to the vote. I'll need a seconder for that. Councillor Abood. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. Yep, carried. Okay, so we will now put the planning permit application to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. We'll now turn to the planning officer to outline the steps moving forward.
Thank you. So the council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the demolition of the existing building and construction of a 6-storey apartment building, subject to the conditions contained within the amended officer recommendation. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 21 days to appeal council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from the date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions on the permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank those who have remained in the gallery and to those live streaming tonight's meeting. Thank you. It has been a very robust debate. I now declare the council meeting closed at 8:34. Thank you, councillors.